The haunted reflection. The old Victorian house stood tall, casting long shadows across the overgrown garden. Its windows, like empty eyes, seemed to watch my every move as I approached. With a nervous gulp, I pushed open the creaking gate and stepped onto the winding path leading to the front door. Inside, the air was thick with dust and a sense of foreboding. I had inherited this house from my late grandmother, but I had never felt comfortable here. It was as if the walls themselves held secrets, whispering tales of long-forgotten horrors. As I climbed the stairs to the second floor, the floorboards groaned beneath my weight. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of something unseen lurking in the shadows. Ignoring my unease, I reached for the doorknob of my bedroom. But before I could turn it, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the house, freezing me in my tracks. My heart hammered in my chest as I hesitated, torn between fleeing and investigating the source of the sound. Summoning all my courage, I pushed open the door and stepped into the dimly lit room. At first, I saw nothing out of the ordinary: a rumpled bed, a dresser covered in dust. But then, I caught a glimpse of movement in the mirror. My reflection stared back at me, but something was horribly wrong. Its eyes were wide with terror, its mouth stretched into a silent scream. I stumbled back, my pulse racing as I realized the truth. My reflection was screaming, but I wasn't. My hands trembled as I reached out to touch the mirror, half expecting my reflection to reach back. But the glass was cool to the touch, revealing nothing but my own terrified face staring back at me. I tore my gaze away from the mirror, scanning the room for any sign of danger. But everything appeared normal. The curtains billowed softly in the breeze, the floorboards creaked beneath my feet. I couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister lurked just beyond my sight, waiting to pounce when I least expected it. With a shiver, I backed away from the mirror and fled the room, the echoes of the scream still ringing in my ears. Descending the stairs, I found myself in the dimly lit hallway, the walls lined with faded photographs and dusty paintings. Each step sent a jolt of fear coursing through me, as if the house itself were alive and watching my every move. As I reached the ground floor, I paused, unsure of where to go next. The scream had seemed to come from my bedroom, but there was no sign of danger there. Could it have been a trick of the wind, a figment of my imagination? Determined to unravel the mystery, I made my way to the library, where my grandmother had spent countless hours poring over ancient tomes and dusty manuscripts. Perhaps there, amidst the shelves of forgotten knowledge, I would find the answers I sought. But as I entered the library, I was greeted by an eerie silence broken only by the faint sound of my own breathing. The books seemed to leer down at me from their shelves, their spines cracked and faded with age. With a sinking feeling in my gut, I began to search the room, pulling books from the shelves and scanning their pages for any clue to the house's dark secrets. But the more I searched, the more frustrated I became. It was as if the answers were just beyond my grasp, teasing me with their elusiveness. Just as I was about to give up hope, my hand brushed against something hidden behind a row of dusty tomes. With a gasp, I pulled it free, a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age. I opened the journal, its pages crackling with age as I turned them. The writing inside was faded, barely legible, but as I read, a chill ran down my spine. The journal belonged to my grandmother, and within its pages, she had chronicled the dark history of our family and the curse that had haunted us for generations. According to her writings, the curse was born of a terrible bargain made by our ancestors, a pact with dark forces in exchange for power and wealth. But with power came a price, and the curse had claimed the lives of countless family members over the years, twisting their souls and driving them to madness. My grandmother had dedicated her life to unraveling the mystery of the curse, but her efforts had been in vain. As I read on, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The mirror in my bedroom was no ordinary mirror. It was a gateway to the spirit world, a conduit for the malevolent forces that sought to destroy us. Desperate to break the curse once and for all, I resolved to confront the darkness head-on. Armed with the knowledge from my grandmother's journal, I returned to my bedroom, steeling myself for whatever horrors awaited me. But as I stood before the mirror, I hesitated, my courage faltering. The screams echoed in my mind, a constant reminder of the danger that lurked within. With a deep breath, I reached out and touched the glass, feeling a surge of power coursing through me. The mirror rippled like water, and for a moment, I caught a glimpse of something beyond, the twisted faces of the damned, writhing in agony. But before I could react, the mirror shattered, sending shards of glass flying in every direction. I stumbled back, shielding my face as the room filled with a blinding light. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The screams ceased, the darkness lifted, and I was left standing alone in the ruins of my bedroom. But as I surveyed the wreckage, I knew that the curse had been broken at last. And though the house would always bear the scars of its dark past, I was free to live my life without fear, without the haunting echoes of the mirror. Or so I thought. Story 2. Echoes of Regret. The rain poured relentlessly, drumming against the windshield as I drove down the deserted highway. It was late, and I was tired, my eyelids heavy with exhaustion. But as I rounded a bend in the road, I saw something that made my blood run cold, a figure standing in the middle of the lane, its eyes glowing with an evil look. I slammed on the brakes, swerving to avoid the figure as it vanished into the darkness. My heart raced as I skidded to a stop, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. What had I just seen? Was it a trick of the light, or something far more sinister? Shaken but determined to put the encounter behind me, I continued on my journey, trying to push the memory of the glowing-eyed figure from my mind. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that lingered in the air. As I approached the small town where I lived, the rain began to taper off, leaving the streets slick and glistening in the moonlight. I navigated the familiar streets with a sense of relief, eager to finally reach the safety of my own home. But as I turned onto my street, I saw something that made my blood run cold, a child standing on the sidewalk, her pale face illuminated by the soft glow of the streetlights. She seemed to be staring right at me, her eyes boring into my soul with a haunting intensity. I slowed to a stop, my heart pounding in my chest as I stared back at the child. There was something eerily familiar about her, something that shook me to the core. And then, as suddenly as she had appeared, the child vanished into thin air, leaving me questioning my sanity. I stumbled out of the car, my legs weak with fear as I stared at the spot where the child had vanished. It couldn't be real, I told myself. It had to be a trick of the light, a figment of my imagination. But deep down, I knew the truth. I had seen a ghost, and it was haunting me for a reason. As I made my way into my house, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that hung in the air. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind seemed to echo with the child's silent accusation. I tried to push the thoughts from my mind, to convince myself that it was all just a dream. But the memory of the glowing-eyed figure on the highway, the child on the sidewalk, it all felt too real, too vivid to be dismissed so easily. With a sinking feeling in my gut, I made my way to the basement, where I kept a box of old newspaper clippings and photographs. It was a morbid habit, perhaps, but one that had haunted me ever since that fateful night so many years ago. As I sifted through the yellowed pages, my heart sank. There, staring back at me from the faded headlines, was the face of the child I had killed in a hit-and-run accident all those years ago. Tears welled in my eyes as I remembered the events of that night, the screech of tires, the sickening thud as my car struck the child, the overwhelming sense of panic as I sped away into the night. I had tried to forget, to bury the guilt deep down where no one could see. But now, faced with the ghost of the child I had killed, I knew that I could no longer run from my past. I picked up the phone and dialed the number for the police station, my voice shaking as I confessed everything, the accident, the cover-up, the years of guilt that had haunted me ever since. The confession weighed heavy on my soul as I sat in the cold, sterile room of the police station. Every moment felt like an eternity as I waited for the officers to return, my heart pounding in my chest with the fear of what would come next. When they finally re-entered the room, their faces were grim, their eyes filled with suspicion. They questioned me relentlessly, probing for inconsistencies in my story, searching for any excuse to doubt my confession. But I held firm, determined to face the consequences of my actions no matter what they may be. And as the hours stretched on, my resolve only grew stronger, fueled by the knowledge that I could no longer hide from the truth. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they escorted me to a holding cell, where I would await trial for my crimes. The weight of my guilt hung heavy in the air as I lay on the narrow cot, staring up at the dim, flickering light above. But as I closed my eyes, seeking solace in sleep, I felt a chill run down my spine, a presence in the room that I couldn't quite shake. And when I opened my eyes, I saw her standing there, the ghost of the child I had killed, her eyes burning with a fierce intensity. I recoiled in terror, my heart pounding in my chest as she stepped closer, her spectral form glowing in the darkness. "You thought confessing would absolve you of your sins," she whispered, her voice echoing with a haunting clarity. "But you were wrong. You can never escape what you've done." And then, with a final, chilling scream, she vanished into the darkness, leaving me alone with my guilt and the knowledge that no matter what punishment awaited me, it would never be enough to atone for the life I had taken. As the hours stretched into days, I awaited my trial with a heavy heart, knowing that no matter the outcome, the ghost of the child I had killed would haunt me until the end of my days. And when the final verdict was read, and I was sentenced to spend the rest of my life behind bars, I knew that justice had been served. But as I lay in my prison cell, the weight of my guilt pressing down on me like a suffocating blanket, I couldn't help but wonder if there would ever be true redemption for the sins of my past. With a heavy heart, I'm writing my final goodbye, because now I know that nothing I do can satisfy her. I've prepared the noose, the only thing left is to say sorry to you, my loving wife. I'm sorry, Emily. I hope the guards give this note to you. I love you. Your husband, Walter. The end. Subscribe for more. Thank you.